Well, welcome. All right, the Sagebrush Sketchers. I'm glad to see you're back. Let's see what we can do today. Today we've got this one right here. Let's see if I can get this without a reflection on it. This is an Ikebana sketch that I did. And today I'd like to talk a little bit about Ikebana. And let's see here. This is a sketch. You can take a picture of this. I'll put it back up in just a minute if you want to, and there I'll put the drawing up as well. But first, how you doing, everybody? Welcome back. Glad to see you're here. We I've changed the format a little bit. I'm not doing live broadcasts currently. I'm trying to get one of these uh, uploaded, just a lesson plan every Wednesday. Oh, and I have my tea. Um, Yes, unless there were a lot of followers, there's just not enough people watching live to make it viable. So I'm just going to put these up for my students, that people that want to continue learning after the class. You know, let's see. Today is Ikebana. Ikebana. Let's make sure I'm spelling this right correctly. A renowned American artist. Berkeley. Uh, how do you spell Ikebana? Ikebana. Ikebana. It's art, Japanese art of flower arrangement. And I've looked up a little bit on chat, so uh, I I am familiar with some Ikebana art, and I became familiar with it because of a poem in one of Gary Snyder's poems. And Gary Snyder is probably my favorite poet. It was during the Beat generation, although I don't know if you can really call him a beat or not. He's not quite like the rest of the beats, but he has a poem in there that's called Obata. I think it's called Obata's Yosemite. I haven't read it in quite a while, but with it, I'll put up. I'll let me switch you to the table here so you can see what I'm doing. Oops. Here we go. I have this book that I bought because of the poem with this painting, and I did a lesson plan that about the poem. But the reason that I found out about Ikebana, I never knew anything about it, was because his wife, this gentleman's wife, Obata, uh, his wife his name is Chiura Obata, Chiura Obata. His wife was an Ikebana artist. And the more I learned about this artist and his life, simultaneously, of course, I learned about his wife, who uh, I think is one of those people who kind of got left out of history and should have had a bigger role in history. She was an Ikebana artist and moved to the United States, as did he. But we will get a little more into them as we go along. Let's first do our normal, as everybody. Please wet your materials. Wet your brushes, damp your brushes a little bit so that they don't get damaged when every time you bend a dry brush, it's really not good for the brush. So you want to make sure that your brushes are slightly damp before you start working. I have some fresh material there that I need to put down. Okay. I did this one. Let's go ahead. I'm going to hold this up if everybody wants to get their phones out, the camera, whatever you use. I'll try to hold this level. The camera is kind of at an angle, so it doesn't give you a perfect. So if I hold this hopefully semi-flat, you'll be able to take a photograph and work on this at your leisure or do it a second or third or fourth time. Okay? And hopefully I remember I made some pen sketches that may help some of you. I'll try and squeeze those in at the end here so that you can try some other designs. Okay, the finished product looks like this. I'll hold this up if you'd like to get a photograph or use your pen. You can obviously, let's see, you can obviously just pause and take the picture so that you have it, or pause it and draw. I've already, as you can well see, drawn mine as usual. And I do this a lot of times. I like to draw right away, but it saves me time, and you don't need to watch me drawing unless I'm teaching you how to draw. So it makes the video a little shorter if I don't try to draw this and talk to you at the same time. While you're drawing yours, though, I will see if I can give you just a little bit of, let's see, this is just some out of, his name is Haruko Obata, and her wife, his wife's name is Haruko Obata. I'm just going to read you a paragraph here, a short one of her life. Haruko Obata was a pioneering Japanese American Ikebana artist. Before World War II, she was one of the first to teach this traditional Japanese flower arrangement art in the United States. During her internment at the Topaz Detention Center in Utah, she continued her craft, even carving a vase with just a nail attached to a stick. Her work showcases her resilience and the dedication to her art. Yes, the Obatas. He was a professor, I believe, at Berkeley, and the Obatas were interned during World War II. They'd been here for a couple of decades, and like I say, he was a college professor. He taught he did art. He's an artist, and in fact, he a lot of times painted her Ikebana arrangements. I'm going to try and turn on my hair and see if it helps. So they're already both on. The lighting in here is never optimal, but it's what I have for now. So here we go. With this one, we're just going to do just the subject. We're not going to paint anything in the background. For this one, you can certainly experiment with that. And we will do some more Ikebana art as time goes on. We're going to do this one, and then we're going to switch back to another subject. But this one, uh, I'll try and squeeze in a few more Ikebana arts as springtime comes on. I like these flower arrangements. I really think they're beautiful. And in fact, I'm considering putting up. I have quite a few of these that I've done, and I'm considering making a display with a live Ikebana piece of art in my living room just for the fun of it. Take down some of the. We'll see. My wife likes the southwestern stuff that we have up there, and the pine tree paintings and mountains and things like that that I've done in the past. Let's see if I can talk her. Don't tell her. Let me spring it on her. It's better that way. All right, let's get started. I'm not going to take too long to do this, but I am using several brushes today because of the size of this. Mostly, I think I will be using, this is a number 6. It's almost gone off of there. And this is one of those Princeton Heritage, uh, what do you call it? This one, I can use, you don't have to use one of these. This is an Alvaro Castanet. And It's got a special shape to it. Can you see that shape? That it can hold quite a bit of water here and comes down to a very fine point. I may not use it, but we'll see. It's very good for putting in oh things like if you were doing a dock scene with a lot of sailboats, you can do the masts quick because it holds a large load. I don't know how much I'm going to use that, but I will for sure be using this one. This is, you've seen it before, number 2, round, small point. And we might do some, but not too much with this number 10. More than likely, if anything, that's about what I will use is these, mostly these two, I think. We'll just do these. So if you have some small brushes, or I've shown a package of brushes that's very inexpensive. You can get at Michael's or something with synthetic bristles that work well. All right, let's get started. Make sure your paints are wet. And we'll get started. You are going to want a test piece today, something you can test what color or how it's working before you put it on some of these things. So I'm going to start with kind of a tough piece here, just for the fun of it. I'm going to take, let's do some, now I am using azo green today. And a lot of you have sap green. With sap green, sap green's a good one for this. You can just use a sap green straight out. It's a lot bluer than azo green. I don't know that you can even see the colors on television. I have noticed that the TV distorts the colors quite often. Azo green is a lot khackier than sap green straight out of the tube, and I don't care which manufacturer, they all seem to have that same issue. I'm adding just a touch of ultramarine blue and kind of bluing my green up. If you have sap green, it's already pretty blue, and you may want to actually go the other way a little bit, but you can experiment with it. And you see the dry brush effect there? Okay. I'm going to try to just achieve just a little bit of that in this part of the flower right here. And I'm also going to leave some little bits of white here and there just to make like there was a little bit of a reflection on it. Just to give it a little, also another thing I like to do, I'm going to go ahead and hit this small one right here. There's a little teeny leaf right there. I'm going to put in a little more ultramarine blue. This is French ultramarine. And just turn my color just a little bit. See how it's a little bluer? Probably just looks a little different in value on the television. I don't know if you can tell the different color. But I don't want all of these leaves to be the exact same color. And we're not, with this painting, we're not trying to be literal. The flowers, I'm not even going to say what they are because we're not trying to make them exactly that flower in this piece. You certainly can do that, and it's a lot of fun to have some flowers that, have it done with orchids or do yours with, with lilacs or whatever. Can't think of cherry blossoms, which we are going to put in this. Cherry blossom sprig is really common in Ikebana, in the Ikebana paintings. Now that I've got those in there, I'm still going to add even a little more blue blew it up even a little more. And you can do these. You don't have, I'm just giving you options here. You can do yours however you want, but I'm going to do these leaves a bit darker just to give my painting some variation. I think I'm also going to switch to that little number 2 because these leaves are smaller. You can, I'm not really paying much attention to it, but you can leave on those smaller leaves, you can leave a little bit of light here and there. You know, you don't have to paint them in. These are, remember, I work on urban sketches, and a little bit of looseness never hurts in an urban sketch. Going to, same as these are a little darker and a little bluer, I'm going to do that same thing on these lower ones here. I'm not taking as long as I used to because with these videos, originally when I was doing the live ones, we may do some live ones again in the future. I'm just too busy to do them right now, and I don't have enough viewers to make it uh, worth worth doing. It's just a lot of work for a lot of preparation. Um, because you can always pause it if you didn't see what I did or you want to do yours differently. What I'm trying to do here is put a little color variation or a value. We're really making a difference. These are much darker leaves here than these bigger leaves. Right? We're just getting some value to the thing, some different values. And while you're doing that, Haruko Obata lived a long life, passing away at the age of 104 in 1989. She continued to inspire through her dedication to Ikebana and her artistic legacy. She was born in Japan in 1892, and she married Chiura Abata in 1912. I hope I'm pronouncing their names right correctly. And together they were significant figures in the Japanese American art community. Hmm. She studied traditional Japanese art, including Ikebana, in Japan before moving to the United States. Her deep knowledge and skill in flower arrangement made her an influential teacher, sharing her expertise with many students in the U.S. The thing about her is, well, let's go on with a piece of this. Let's see here. The vase. I like my vase. This one's just kind of grayish. And you can make a blue vase. You could make, let's see, I wouldn't want to do too yellow of one. If so, it would be a really neutralized color. Um, Here's the thing with my gray vase, it leaves the flower arrangement as being the main subject. If you make too many colors, this is something you experiment with. If you make this too bright and pretty, then all of a sudden it draws the attention to the vase and not to the flower arrangement. So um, for the vase, let's see here. I'm just going to make one of those grays that you've seen me make a dozen times or more. I'm using ultramarine blue, a little burnt umber, and if you'd like, a lot of people use just raw umber instead of burnt umber, but they keep the burnt sienna. It's not a bad way to go. It's just not something that I'm currently using in classes. I have to take out some of the green in here. It's just too much. So ultramarine blue and a little burnt umber. and we're making a slightly bluish gray. So that's where we're headed with this. I want mine on the cool side being blue as opposed to the warm side being brown. And I will make a little test here. Ooh, that's still pretty green. Oh, I might kill the green. Let's see it run just a little bit of an experiment here. We'll get just a little burnt sienna. And that should tone down because it has red in it. Try to kill that green that's still in that palette that I should have cleaned out, really. Let's see if that made much of a difference here. Not a lot. A little more brown in there. I'm putting in burnt sienna now, just because I want to kill that green. And burnt sienna has red, and red is the complementary color to green, right? It's on the opposite side of the color wheel. Is that correct? Someone comment. Tell me yes or no. Okay, I'm not gonna mess with this too much more. Still a little odd for my taste. One more, one more dab of the brown there. Whoa, that was a lot of blue. Okay, now I have a very dark color. Kind of grayish. I'm not sure I like it as much as the other, but I'm gonna go with it. So we want to remember that the light is coming across this way. So this part of the vase is getting hit with some light. We want this side of the vase to be whoops, there we go, is a little darker. You can see that there's a shadow behind the flower there going over here. So it's shadowy on this side, lighter on this side. So this first one, this first wash, I'm just going to put, and this is going on a little dark. I'm actually going to lighten this up as I go along here. Just going to put a wash on here that gives me my gray, but I want to leave some white highlights over in this area. So I'm going to go along, putting in a little bit of gray here and there, but as I come to this area over here, I'm going to put both a lighter value and I'm going to leave some white highlights in there. Okay. And we'll come back with a little bit of a shadow color after this dries. You can darken it up while it's wet if you want. You can start darkening that. I'm also, my vase this pattern that I'm using, I made for my students is slightly different from the painting that I did earlier because this one does not have a pedestal and it's slightly more oval shaped than this one is, or elliptical, I guess would be the word. Or just getting a gray on there, just something to start with, okay? We're going to let this dry up and we'll come back with some shadows. You can while you have this, but let's wait. We'll wait for it. Let's go ahead and do one that I neglected while we're doing this. Back to this green. I want the bluish green again. And I'm going to put in some leaves down here. Mm, Mm, sorry, there's a little ice in my tea. I made a very rich tea this morning, and I put some ice in it. I didn't hope you're not listening to me chew some ice there. Mm. All right, this flower here is really, I did it with teal, but I neutralized the color because see how bright that is? I don't want this one to be the ultimate flower. I want this to be the main. So what I'm going to do here is I've put a little teal on here. I'm leaving some white highlights here and there. I'm also leaving an area in the middle so that I can put in where the stamina, pedestal and stamen are. And I've lightened it up a little bit. You can go in with just a touch of gray, kind of gray some of this up a little bit, or at least I am. You don't have to. I don't want this to be so, I don't want the chroma to be so high on this particular flower that it steals all the show. This flower is gray, but I'm going to use the same gray that I had, but I'm going to put in just a touch of that teal to blue it up a little lighter blue, different type of blue, just so slightly. You can see that this shadow color is not that different from this color, only it's slightly lighter blue, but the value of it is much lighter, right? And that's what I'm after. I don't want any darks in this flower, and I want a lot of. It's really a white flower. I can't think of the name. Sorry. Should be able to, but like I say, we're not really in this particular practice piece. We're not really concerned with the exact flower. Although I think in Ikebana, if you continue with these and you paint more of them, um, you will want to know exactly what flowers are in there. So I'm going to lighten this up because I got it pretty dark. Got my piece of Carhartt or t-shirt, whichever you prefer. We'll let that dry up. This one really doesn't take too long. While those are drying, you don't have to do a lot of this. You can do this if you want to. You can make these branches with your pencil and they'll look pretty cool. You can make them with the fountain pen or with a dip pen and they look pretty cool. You could, if you really wanted a lot of color in the thing, you could use different colors of ink for those branches. What I want to do here is going to just take some burnt sienna. That's the lighter of the, and I'm not going to do the whole branch. I'm just going to, but I have a very fine brush. If you don't have a steady hand, you may want to do yours with the pencil or the ink because the brush has a tendency to widen out very easily. And I'm just adding just a little bit of color here and there. This piece, I'm going to go ahead and put quite a bit of material in, and I will come back a little later. This is, I guess, a piece of oh, cherry blossom. We'll do a more realistic one at some point. I have a piece of cherry blossom here um, that it's not a real one. It's just one of those that I of dried flowers that I purchased at Michael's or at yeah, probably Michael's, maybe Hobby Lobby, one of those. Who has the flowers? I think it was Michael's. I can't remember. But if you do this, you can see I'm adding, it might be even too much color here. You see what I'm saying? It really adds a lot of color to the sketch. So you can decide whether yours is getting too bright. And on this big one here, you can use, I am putting in some burnt umber, like a shadow on that big one. I know I'm going pretty quickly here. This area in here and in here, I'm not going to paint the lip of the vase because I like that white in there just to draw attention to it. It's not necessarily correct, um, but I like it, so I'm going to leave it. You could paint it and leave a little highlight where the white, where the sun might, or the light coming from a window or whatever might be hitting it. But back to this area. This area in here, I like to do this just dark where there's so much foliage and so much going on in here that you just don't really see any detail or know what's going on there. It just is dark. So I'm putting a base layer of a gray in here, and I'll probably come back and darken this up in a little while once that dries. Another great thing is that you can make the center of this flower a little darker here. Usually they're a little darker in the middle, although some of them, like this blue one, I'm going to use yellow ochre right in the center there, just to make it a little lighter. These, I went a little haywire with these branches. They're probably a little different than this in real life, but we're going to assume that there's something like a cherry blossom. We're going to make them kind of pinkish, the flowers and the buds. I'm sure if there's a botanist out there or someone who does, uh, what's that called? I can't think, in my mind. Like I tell my wife, I'm old and I have a broke leg. Of course, I broke my leg 3 years ago. It's much better now, but I still use it as an excuse occasionally. Um, someone who does nature sketching, I'm sure is going to have a conniption fit with my made up flowers and lack of detail to the specificity of the flowers. Putting just a few little petals that have fallen on the ground. And I'm going to come back in here and put some darker stamen here. And I'm going to start mixing some more gray. I do a lot of gray making. How are we coming? Everybody getting something on their page? Hmm. I know this is terrible of me. I shouldn't even tell you. Hmm. But bought a pack of old-fashioned cherry candy drops, little hard tack candies that are about that big. I dropped two of them in my tea this morning. They're really good, really tasty. And just that little something special there. So I'm going to put the shadow in here now. It's just a little bit more mixture of a dark gray. The only thing you want to pay attention to here is that this shadow kind of goes around and kind of arches right there. The pot really does stand out no matter how I do it. If I make it too dark, it certainly stands out. And I'm going to come up this way a little bit with the color. And I'll do the bottom here in just a minute, but now I've dipped my brush in the water, wiped it off on the thing, and I want to soften this edge a little bit, make some softer, like lost and found edges, where it's not just stark. And down here, I think I'm going to go ahead and just make the whole thing darker. I'm not sure how much. Now, in reality, how much light this would be getting. In reality, um, were you doing this hyper realistically? A lot of times, look at objects in your house. Look at when you're out at restaurants and things like that. This vase more than likely would have reflected light right here. It would be lighter, and it might even be reflecting whatever color the tablecloth is or the table is down here. Usually there's a little bit of reflected light right there. I don't want to get too serious with it because I just a little teeny bit. You don't have to do that. It's very dangerous. It can make a mud mess of the painting. But in real life, a lot of times there is that little reflected light there. I'm getting a little bit of the darker shadow color on my thing, and I'm just going to make an imitation scratch, a dry brush effect right through where I put my signature, and to say that that is the shadow. It's not really the shadow. It's just to give you something. So just an indication that there is a shadow. So if you're urban sketching in your own location, you can just fling something in there, and people's eye will still say, that is a shadow. I am putting a little shadow on the edge of these leaves to make them a little bit three-dimensional, just for the fun of it. Well, this is drying. I'm going to come back in here, and I'm not necessarily going to paint that in solid now. I'm coming in with some more shadow color, but I'm just putting some movement in there. I'm just putting a little bit of darker color in some areas, leaving some of it not painted. Some of it is painted. I was looking at that sprig of cherry blossom. So I'm going to make this completely unrealistic because in that sprig, the centers are actually kind of white, where I just put some reddish there, a little bit darker. But I want to just put a little something there. Could be that I'm putting too much detail in this one. I've got a little bit more shadow color as this dries up down here, and I'm going to darken this right under the lip of the vase there where it rolls over. And I'm going to darken right here along the bottom and right here a little bit. And I think I'm still going to try and take a little bit more of this blue out of here because this little flower that I made blue and I talked about it being stealing the show. I think this one is the vase is stealing the show a little bit. And so is this blue flower here. So I'm going to try to pastel them even a little more, or at least the flower. You can do stuff like this one when you're doing these. See this? It doesn't really even connect to anything. Obviously, in real life, there's detail in these leaves, these branches, these leaves that would probably have that line down the middle, or they may even be a bluer a leaf than what I have. But if you were there on location and you saw this and you sketched this and painted it and you hung it on your wall, as they say, let it have a life of its own once you've done it. Don't worry about it. Don't be constantly second guessing yourself. Just hang it on the wall and let it have a life of its own. And you would forever remember that place, that time when you sketched it. You'll probably even remember this class if you did it and hung it on the wall. It's a nice way to make a memory. All right. Today's lesson, short and sweet. Anybody see anything there that I've left out on purpose or not on purpose that I should have? Leave a comment. Hmm. There was something else that I was going to talk about today, but if you get a chance and you like this type of thing, try to find Haruko Obata. As I understand it, there was only one book of her work published in her lifetime. It was an instructional manual, and it was published in the 40s, and it's long since been out of print, and I haven't been able to find one. So, but I haven't tried things like eBay yet, so I may peruse a few used bookstores and eBay and keep an eye out um, for to see if I can find one. I'd love to have a book of her work, or at least her one published work. And I believe the illustrations in it may have been from him. He used to do a lot of illustrations of her work. So it was her. She'd create the piece, and then he would make a painting of it, as I understand it. Obata, nice one to look up. All right, let's see here. Appreciate you coming. Hope you get to do something with that. Oh yes, I did this one. This I was just sitting around with a fountain pen, and I'm gonna set this down here and get my face out of your way here so you can see the tabletop. Get your or just pause it. There's a few sketches of different that could be Ikebana at least compositions, different vases and different flowers. You can stick the flowers that you like in there, or you can do a little research on Ikebana and put Ikebana special flowers. For instance, the other day, my mother's birthday came up, and I was making a card for her, and I wanted to put a rose in an Ikebana painting. And my wife said, they don't have roses in Ikebana paintings. And I believe she's probably right. But this is art, and you're the boss of it. You can make it strict, stay strictly to Ikebana and study up on the rules, or you can make it your own. Put in what you want. Put in a nightshade, make it a dark as a nightshade, that poisonous flower or deadly flower only blooms at night. Or you could use those white ones, um, the datura plant. If I get carried away, you're not going to want those. Probably not. I like datura plants, so they're big, beautiful white flowers, even though they're a hallucinogen, and most ranchers, I believe, try to eradicate them because the horses eat them and the cows eat them, and that causes problems. Appreciate you coming. Stay safe and stay happy, and above all, keep sketching. See you next time. All right, take care.